When did you first become interested in the circumstances of the JFK assassination?
1973.
And obviously, your specialization is the mob. What led you to pursue that direction, other than what might be more common in the research community, the intelligence angles?
I started going through the Warren Commission volumes and stumbled on some documents about Jack Ruby, and he looked suspicious to me, and I started checking out the names of some of his associates and phone contacts, and they turned out to be mob people, and that really led me down the path of looking at organized crime.
Okay, I was 8 years old, and I watched Ruby shoot Oswald live on TV, and I thought they killed him to shut him up. And I got that impression as a little kid. It seemed an obvious sort of a thing. After 30 years, how clear of a picture do we have? How certain can we be about the circumstances of the whodunit of the case?
I think what you mentioned about Ruby shooting Oswald, that's one of the few points of clarity in the case. It's clear that Ruby was a mobster, that's his job. We have FBI records talking about his involvement at a mid-level in narcotics and gambling in Dallas. He knew well the mafia boss of Dallas, Joseph Civillo. There's an FBI document that describes the relationship that when it was published in the Warren Commission, that paragraph about the Ruby-Civillo association is blanked out. So we know Ruby's background. We know his alibi for shooting Oswald was ridiculous. We can look at all the witnesses. They contradict each other. We know that Ruby's killing of Oswald was a mob hit to silence Oswald. That part of the case is clear. I think beyond that, it's a little fuzzier. We certainly have the Marcello, Traficante, and Hoffa discussions in the summer of '62 specifically about plots to kill Kennedy. We do have, through Ruby's phone records and other evidence, we have mob links to the case. I think you can make a good case that the mafia was involved in the assassination as well as the killing of Oswald, but I don't believe it's the whole story, and I think that the parts of the case that are clear are a very small part of what we know.
Now, with the Oliver Stone film, regardless of what you or I might think of the nature of the plot as described there was an outcry to unseal the files. What is there in the files that you would like to see?
I haven't been as much on top of the Freedom of Information Act suits and what's there and what isn't there. I'd like to see, certainly Frank Rogano should be deposed before Congress under oath. I think there are a lot of witnesses, many witnesses out there who we know of who talk about mob ties, and if there was a serious government investigation, I think dozens more would come out. But I don't know too much about documents that may surface.
Okay. Who do you think over the years have been some of the most important researchers in clarifying the issue for the American people?
Well, there's been many generations of research. I think Josiah Thompson, 6 Seconds in Dallas, was a key researcher. I think Dan Moldea in first tying together the pivotal people, the pivotal mobsters who spoke of killing Kennedy, made an important contribution. I really can name 20 people who I think have done good research in the case, and it's just hard to know where to start.
I wouldn't want you to offend anybody by leaving them out.
No.
Some people thrive on that question. Other people just say, I can't answer that. Okay, let's move on. Do you feel that at this point in time that there's any purpose to be served by a new investigation or a special prosecutor of some kind?
I certainly think there is. I think that, again, I think there are many witnesses who, if there was a credible body with the powers to really dig deep, to grant immunity, I certainly think there are parts of the case that are almost proven, and we just need some witnesses to pin it down. I definitely think there's a lot of loose ends that could be pinned down by new action.
Have you ever been harassed, in your opinion, for the research, or threatened in any way? Do you feel in danger at any time?
I've worked for 20 years on this, and I can recall two incidents of the most lowest level of potentially implied threats that I didn't take very seriously, that are pretty, common for people working on organized crime aspects. The basic answer is no.
Do you lend any credence to the idea that the suspicious deaths have some connection there? Do you see any reality in that?
There's no question that in the early after the JFK assassination, there were many people murdered who were closely investigating the assassination, and clearly sinister murders. For example, there were two journalists and an attorney who met in Jack Ruby's apartment the day that Ruby shot Oswald. One was killed by a karate chop to the throat. Hunter and Koth, right. One was shot to death in a Los Angeles police station. Koth was working on a book on the assassination. There's many that could be coincidental, but there's a hard dozen that were sinister. There were threats in some cases, like with Sheriff Craig, specifically connected to organized crime threats. I think there's no question that there was a pattern of murder and intimidation.
Okay, I'm going to wrap it up now with the one final question. Now, a lot of times the general news media, because of the idea it's a wilderness of mirrors, and the thing is just so complex, suffers from all kinds of disinformation. Everybody's got their own theory, and some people think all the theories overlap and intersect. If you were interviewing yourself, what question would you wish that they would ask you, and what's the heart of the case to you? What's important about this?
I think it's a complex case. It's hard to say there's one answer. I think there are ways of penetrating enormous confusion and complexity, but I don't think it's a 10-second soundbite. From what I've looked at, I think there's compelling evidence that organized crime was involved in some way, not to say that they were the whole of it. Clearly, the Mafia and the CIA were working together to kill Castro and in other activities. I would say that if a newsman went out and looked at the 30 or 40 responsible researchers who cite sources in their works, they'd find a preponderance of people find that both the Mafia and intelligence have many, many suspicious links to the case, and it's not, the picture of a million different theories is not correct.